and thank you for coming. My name is Andrew Berman. I'm the Executive Director of the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation. We've got some wonderful community groups and elected officials and community board leaders from across the city. We're here today to talk about the city's proposed rezoning plan. It's called Zoning for Quality and Affordability. We're very concerned about the impact that it will have on our neighborhoods. We're going to be heading over to the environmental scoping hearing at 4 o'clock at City Planning. And we're here to tell you about some of the concerns that we have about the plan and some of the changes that we think that the city needs to make. Now, just to be clear, this plan that's been proposed by the city would change rules that communities fought for years and years and years to get to help protect the scale and character of their neighborhoods. And in a lot of cases, these proposed changes by the city are really for nothing but market rate luxury condo development. In our neighborhood, as an example, you would get a 20% bump just for building luxury condos as compared to what you can currently build with no public benefit whatsoever. There's an additional 10% bump you would get for what the city calls affordable housing, which is really 1 unit of affordable housing for every 4 units of luxury housing that are built along with it. So these 30% or more increases that the city is proposing for the allowable size of new developments in our neighborhoods are, in a best case scenario, 80% luxury housing with a fraction of affordable housing mixed in. So we think some very serious changes need to be made to this plan instead of this one-size-fits-all approach that we currently have. And instead of fast-tracking it, there needs to be more time for consultation with local communities and looking at the conditions on the ground in those communities. I would like to I would like to turn the speaker's podium over to the first of our elected officials here today, City Council Member Rosie Mendez.
Yay, Rosie! Thank you. So I have been a housing advocate all of my adult life.
Yes, you have.
And I have fought for affordable and permanent housing where I lived in Brooklyn and where I live now in the Lower East Side, East Village. 7 years ago, we worked to pass the Lower East Side, East Village rezoning. We passed this 7 years ago, but it took us 8 years of working on it. 5 years under my predecessor, Margarita Lopez, and the community boards coming together to come up with a plan, and then 3 years of me as a councilwoman with the scoping session, with a colleague, part of the rezoning was in his district, and working with advocates. You know, we came up with a plan that makes sense. We had inclusionary housing on the big avenues. We had contextual zoning on the small side streets. And let me tell you, we weren't all in agreement. I spent a lot of those 3 years sitting at kitchen tables with people trying to figure out what is the appropriate balance and where we could all agree on for the better of the entire community and district. This man sat at that table with me too. Sometimes we didn't agree, sometimes we did. At the end, we all made concessions and we agreed. They are talking about undoing what we put in place. Yes. It has not even been in existence as long as it took us to put it, to make it legally a reality. And now this would upzone all the areas and those small streets and even the inclusionary areas to have more density, more housing, and if it was all affordable housing, I can go back to my community and we could try to figure this out, but it's not going to be affordable housing. Why we came up with the plan we did is because there are, in my district, and I'm sure in other districts, we are seeing harassment by construction. And they are building a penthouse level, they're building another floor or two, and in the process they harass all the rent stabilized tenants out. That's what we're going to see if this rezoning goes through, at least in my district. And in a lot of the areas in this city that are zoned R7A, we're gonna suffer, we're gonna lose our affordable housing, and we're not gonna get anything in return. So you wanna build permanent affordable housing? We're here to have the talk and walk the walk. So Mr. Mayor, we are ready to have that discussion. We are ready to come to the table, and I am proud that my colleagues are here with me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up is City Council Member Ben Kallos from the East Side.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Rain's not going to keep us down. I represent the Upper East Side, Roosevelt Island, East Harlem Councilmember Ben Kallos. We have RABs. That means it's got an FAR of 8 and it's contextually zoned, and we're capped at around 81 feet. This new proposal wants to bump it up another 15 feet. And let me just tell you a little bit about new development. What new development means is we place our 4-story, our 5-story, and our 6-story walk-ups that are 100% rent-regulated affordable housing with new housing that may have up to 20% affordable housing. So we will be losing affordable housing. Forget about preserving 120,000 units or building 80,000. We're going to start at a negative number here. And so that is what this zoning plan will allow. It will allow them to raise our neighborhoods and get rid of all the rent-regulated units and replace it with these luxury condos that no one can afford to live in, and none of us will be able to afford to live in. And we can do so much more. And just to talk a little bit about affordability. When they talk about affordability, they're talking about an AMI. And so this is an HPD HUD number, and it's based on an entire region. So according to them, it's around $80,000 a year. And if you know people making $80,000 a year, the average median income in this city is around $50,000, which means in order for there to be affordable housing, 25% of our income, that comes out to about $1,000 a month. I would love to see the city putting up affordable housing at $1,000 a month. But back to the amendment, we fought so hard to get these contextual zones. We fought so hard and sacrificed so much for height caps. In exchange for giving up these height caps, we're not getting anything back in return, and we have to do more. This plan has to be more. We can't talk about percentages of affordable housing. It needs to be 100% affordable housing. And when we're talking about 20%, we can't be double dipped. If they're going to try to double dip, we're not talking about 20% affordable housing anymore. We're talking about 40% affordable housing, and affordable for people making less than $50,000 a year, which is half of New Yorkers, for 1 million New Yorkers. So in order for this all to work, we don't need 200,000 units. We need 1.5 million units for 4 million people to be able to pay less than $1,000 a month. That's what affordability looks like. Thank you so very much for all the advocates coming out. I'll be honest, I've been knowing this was coming. There have been whispers. Have you all heard the whispers?
Yes.
Yes.
And I've been running around like Chicken Little saying the sky is falling, because there won't be a sky, because we're gonna live in the age of the super scraper. Buildings that are 900 feet tall and taller, and we won't have light and air anymore, and we won't have affordable housing anymore. And they're trying to move this plan further too quickly. We need to slow it down, we need to give everyone a chance to give feedback, and we need to make sure we deliver real affordability. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Where is the mayor?
Our next speaker is another great friend of ours and advocate on the city council, Councilmember Corey Johnson. Well then, Councilmember Inez Barron will be next.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here with my colleagues and with all of you who understand that we cannot continue down the road of a city that caters to those who are wealthy. I represent East New York, and you may know that the mayor has identified East New York as one of his target areas. He plans to bring in 7,000 units, And as I read the EAS,
Got a great shot of the back
half
of this guy's
of
head.
those units, half of the 7,000, he says will be affordable. And by his plan and by his schedule, that affordability means people earning up to $100,000. Well, Mr. Mayor, the community that I represent is not the 84 for the city, is not the 50 for the other area that my colleague mentioned. My community, the neighborhood median income is $33,000. $33,000. So it's not affordable to those who are presently living there. And we're saying that we're not looking to endorse a plan that's going to not provide opportunities for us to continue to live where we have lived all these years, force us out because we cannot continue to pay the rent that now other landlords are going to seek because their neighbor down the block is getting a higher rental, so why shouldn't they? So we're opposed to this plan. My community board is opposed to this plan. We invite you to go online and look at the EIS and the EAS for this community so that you can be forewarned. We know that forewarned is forearmed. We've got to continue to fight. We've got to maintain that legislation that we've been able to fight for and get in place and not see it demolished. Thank you.
And now we have, as I introduced before, our great friend on the City Council, Councilmember Corey Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In the spirit of Women's History Month, and after following two of my wonderful colleagues, Rosie, Mendez, and Inez Barron, I want to invoke the name of Jane Jacobs as we stand here today. There is a value to affordable housing. We all know that, and we support affordable housing. But there is also a value to the character of our neighborhoods, to light and air and sky. And what we know is that these things, affordable housing and making sure that our neighborhoods keep the special character that they have had for many years and many decades, those two things are not mutually exclusive. We can do both. Now, the people here today represent all parts of the city. The district I represent is the Lower West Side of Manhattan, West Soho, Greenwich Village, Chelsea, and Hell's Kitchen. And the reason why Greenwich Village and Soho and the lower part of Chelsea is what it is today is because of people like Jane Jacobs, who came before us and said, you are not going to destroy our communities. They got in the way of Robert Moses, and they did the right thing. Now, I'm not trying to exaggerate, I don't think this is Robert Moses, but a one-size-fits-all solution does not work. We have a process in place. We have 59 community boards. We have 5 boroughs. We have 51 members of the city council. Every neighborhood is different. And so to put through a citywide text amendment that is going to destroy these hard-fought protections is wrong. Many of the protections that are in place in my district, 70 feet in West Chelsea and in Greenwich Village, other protections that were fought for by GVSHP and other organizations, there were compromises that took place. Those rezonings took place because people said, okay, give us the cap here and we'll trade off somewhere else and give you an upzoning. This would wipe all of that away in many instances. That is not right. It is disrespectful to the community advocates, to the community boards, to the borough presidents and members of the city council that, as Councilmember Mendez said, took years to negotiate these things. And so do we want our neighborhoods across the city to be places where buildings are torn down to get an additional 10 to 15 feet? Or do we want to keep the special character? I don't know anyone that moves to certain communities or neighborhoods because of fancy, big, beautiful skyscrapers. Yeah. They come because of the character and context of our neighborhoods.
And
we are on the precipice right now. We are at the crossroads. The city should delay this scoping session. They should take more time to go to every community board across the city
Yes.
and hear feedback.
And Chelsea,
Why
by the way,
rush this through? We all believe in affordable housing, but the way to get affordable housing done is to work with communities and figure out where it works and where it makes sense, and not wipe out hard-fought protections that have taken years and decades to win. So I applaud the mayor on his goal to preserve and build 200,000 units of affordable housing. And I stand ready, willing, and able with him to find appropriate places where that makes sense. But writing a blank check to developers and landlords across the city to try to maximize their profits, and we may not even get affordable housing out of it, that is a recipe for disaster. Jane Jacobs will be looking down today in this rainy weather, smiling on us for standing up and saying, do the right thing, protect the future of New York City. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Johnson, and to all the council members who've been showing support. Their efforts are going to be crucial because, of course, this will eventually come to the City Council for a vote. So it's very important that we have them here and that we have them working with us. Next up, I'd like a representative of our citywide protector of our historic districts and historic neighborhoods, Simeon Bankoff from the Historic Districts Council.
HDC represents over 500 neighborhood groups who are dedicated to preserving the physical character of their neighborhoods. Many of these groups, I'd even go as far to say most of them, have looked to contextual zoning as a way to protect the character of their neighborhoods, to protect their sky, to protect their homes. This plan takes the context out of contextual zoning. It is effectively rezoning, by our calculations, 10.5% of New York City's properties in one fell swoop. New York City is a city of neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are diverse, they're special. Our elected leaders have talked about the long years of struggle and study that went into carefully looking at each of these neighborhoods, and instead to rezone 10% of them with one amendment is ridiculous. Bigger buildings do not equal lower rents. If that were the case, West 57th Street would be Manhattan's newest middle-class neighborhood. The mayor's here? Mr. Mayor!
Well, I think you heard us. So we're going to thank you very much, Simeon Bankoff, and for all of the work that you do. Next up, I have Richard Hellenbrecht from the Queens Civic Congress, which represents more than 100 groups from across the borough of Queens.
Thank you very much, and thank you for pulling this together. Queens Civic Congress is deeply concerned that such wide-ranging and immediate changes will bring about impacts that are far-reaching implications affecting the lifestyles and potentially diminish the quality of life throughout the city for future generations. We have many questions about the need for such drastic action so urgently. Where are the seniors that so desperately need this housing? Do we really need seniors over the age of 55 who do not drive? Do we really need the parking spaces to be taken away for them? If they do happen to drive, where are they going to park? Where are they going to put their cars? This is a serious problem in Queens. It could be. We agree that affordable housing is necessary and important, but we believe that the market, that is the developer community, will happily create appropriate affordable housing if the demand is truly there. Queens Civic Congress calls on our Queens elected officials and all city elected officials to stand behind us and our fellow organizations gathered here today in search of a reasonable, managed change to reach measured housing goals that would have minimal impact on our strong and well-established neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Peter Bray from the Park Slope Civic Council. Peter?
Okay, coming through.
Here he comes.
Thanks, Andrew.
Peter.
I'm Peter Bray. I'm with the Park Slope Civic Council, and I'm glad to be here today. The Civic Council has taken a strong stand in favor of affordable housing. We joined with other downtown Brooklyn organizations as part of Brooklyn Speaks to advocate and push the state to accelerate affordable housing in the Atlantic Yards development. So I want to be clear that this proposal is not a dichotomy between affordable housing and being anti-affordable housing. And in fact, it reminds me of a statement that was made during the Vietnam War. For those of you who are old enough to remember that, there was an American commander who said after the Battle of Hue that we had to destroy it in order to save it. And I think that's what we're talking about here. This zoning plan is not about saving our neighborhoods. It's not about preserving the quality that attracts people far and wide to want to live in New York, to make these real communities where there's economic development because people want to live and work there. This is about a giveaway to developers to expand what's going to turn out to be, for the most part, luxury housing. The Civic Council worked with then Councilmember de Blasio 12, 13, 14 years ago when a rezoning went through Park Slope. It upzoned certain areas, particularly 4th Avenue, and it created contextual downzoning in the side streets. In the 10 years since that rezoning went through, 4th Avenue, which had 3- and 4-story buildings, much of which contained rent-stabilized apartments, has now been replaced by a forest of 12-story residential buildings. Not one single unit of affordable housing is found along 4th Avenue. So I stand with everyone else who's spoken here today. The Civic Council is going to oppose this plan as it's been formulated, and we want to fight for a more nuanced plan that guarantees real affordable housing and preservation of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Our next speaker is also from Brooklyn, Claudette Brady from the Bedford Stuyvesant Neighborhood Preservation Organization.
Me and Bed-Stuy oppose this plan. One of the things is our community reached out to our community board for contextual zoning. The members of that community board land use committee literally walked block by block, every single block in Bed-Stuy, to determine how that zoning would be done. Years of work, years of effort is now being thrown out the door. Speaking as Inez Barron did, Councilmember Inez Barron did, the median income rates that are being proposed would mean pretty much the majority of people now living in Bed-Stuy could not afford to live in any of these new units. The plan has to be done community by community. The AMI has to match the community, the existing residents, and it has to look at the quality of life and how people live and communicate, live within those environments. I say to the mayor, we are all for affordable housing. However, this plan does not provide affordable housing, at least not for the residents of Bed-Stuy. Thank you.
Claudette. And an enormous component of this whole process and the folks who work with neighborhood groups to do this sort of local planning are our community boards. And we're very happy in Greenwich Village to have the chair of our community board too, Tobi Bergman, here to speak.
Hi, thank you very much. Community Board 2 last week unanimously endorsed a resolution asking for 60 more days for the scoping process, and for basically we're in favor of revamping this plan. We're very much behind the goals of this plan, but we actually think the details of the plan are counterproductive to the goals. And just one example of that, for our neighborhood, and it's going to be different from every neighborhood around the city. We're a neighborhood that has lost a lot through the lack of affordability. We've become a neighborhood. We were a neighborhood that was very diverse. I grew up there in my childhood. We were a very diverse neighborhood. We're now no longer a diverse neighborhood, and we're no longer an affordable neighborhood. We're going to become less affordable and less diverse because of this plan, because this plan will encourage the redevelopment of some buildings, some older buildings that still have more affordable, not affordable places to live, but more affordable places to live. And when they're redeveloped, they will be less affordable. So that's just an example of why you can't just take a plan that might work, might have very good aspects for some neighborhoods, and apply it to every neighborhood. And we just look at this plan and we say it does nothing for affordability, and it's harmful for the fabric and the quality of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next speaker represents an organization that has worked for many, many years in both East Harlem and on the Upper East Side on planning issues exactly like this, neighborhood preservation, promotion of affordable housing. I'd like to ask Emma Marconi Bologna from CIVITAS to come up and speak.
Well, good afternoon. As Andrew mentioned, I'm Emma Bologna, the Executive Director of CIVITAS. CIVITAS recommends retaining the current height restrictions. Over the past 34 years, we have successfully advocated for affordable housing and improved zoning, including contextual zoning on the Upper East Side and in East Harlem. The Zoning for Quality and Affordability proposal will haphazardly change zoning across New York without thoroughly examining the varying needs of individual neighborhoods. It is crucial that the scope examine whether these changes are appropriate for each neighborhood and explore the impact of larger and taller buildings on neighborhood character, residents, historic structures, community resources, parks, shadows, and infrastructure. Imposing a wide-reaching zoning change will have the unintended consequence of promoting insensitive development, and they'll be out of context with its surroundings and result in the influx of new market-rate apartments and significant upside pressure on rents. This will cause many longtime residents to be forced to leave their neighborhoods as their once affordable apartments become too expensive. Additionally, how many current affordable units will be lost when their buildings are replaced for larger and denser structures in contrast to the affordable units provided in these new buildings? Given the importance of affordable housing as well as contextual zoning, CIVITAS suggests the city undertake a more detailed assessment of the implications of this proposal and alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The one thing we're hearing from everybody here is that this one-size-fits-all top-down approach is not the way to do what's in the best interest of our communities or our city, and that even though this proposal is called Zoning for Quality and Affordability, we're skeptical of how much we're going to get of either of those, but we know we're going to lose light and air and neighborhood character. An organization which for many years has been fighting for all of those things is Landmark West, who is also one of the groups that helped put together today's press conference, and I'd like to ask their president, Kate Wood, to come up and speak.
Thank you all. I'm Kate Wood. I'm president of Landmark West, and we've been working for 30 years on these kinds of issues. And so I'm here to speak up on behalf of the Upper West Side. I'm joined here by groups like the Coalition for a Livable West Side, West Siders for Responsible Development, the Committee for Environmentally Sound Development, Three Parks Independent Democrats, and many others who, like the rest of you, have worked for years to create our contextual zoning districts, our R10As, our R8Bs. And on the Upper West Side, there's this amazing harmony between contextual districts and historic districts. They go hand in hand. That is our plan for sustaining a livable, beautiful community on the Upper West Side. Hope is not a plan. We cannot ensure quality and affordability through wishful thinking. And as much as we all agree that New Yorkers need affordable housing, we deserve quality architecture, that is not what this proposal will deliver. In answer to the very serious questions of how can we build more affordable housing, places for seniors to live, a better architecture is simply build more. At best, that's wishful thinking. At worst, it's a massive giveaway to developers. So I agree with everything that people have said today. This plan does not talk about what we will inevitably get, without questions coming right up. Out-of-scale buildings, longer shadows on our streets and sidewalks and our parks, stresses to our infrastructure, displacement of existing affordable housing, destruction of existing buildings that already are beautiful and contribute to the character of our neighborhoods. Real life neighborhoods, places where people have worked hard for decades to establish sound regulations to manage growth. These will be traded for wishful thinking. Our city needs zoning reform, no doubt about it. Our skyline is changing radically all around us. Each new building is taller than the next, and this is only the beginning. The message these mega towers send to the people of New York is real estate is paramount. Allowing developers to max out development potential is more important than creating a city where any of us would actually want to live.
That's right. Yeah.
We desperately need planning to stop the abuse of our neighborhoods, to take back our streets and take back our sky. Hundreds of people have already signed a petition calling for exactly that kind of reform. Let today be a call to action. Thank you all so much. It's great to be among you.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's great to be among you and have you here as well. Our next speaker is Paul Graziano, who is a zoning consultant who's probably helped rezone more blocks of the city than any of us could count. Paul.
Thank you. I'm going to keep this pretty brief. There was a statement that the mayor made about a month ago when this whole thing was starting to percolate, and that quote is that we have a duty to protect and preserve the culture and character of our neighborhoods, and we will do so. Now, we can see what the rhetoric is and what the reality is in all of this. I parsed through that 166-page document that most people don't even know existed, because all they did was put up 20 slides on the city planning website, and all I can tell you is one of the key words in each of the sentences is, this will have no effect on the city because these changes will be so dispersed throughout the city that there will be what's called a no effect. So what that essentially means is you've got areas covering, again, 10% of the housing, but really spread across almost 50% of the city where this can happen. And you're only going to have one building here and a building over there and a building 5 miles away. We all know that this is nonsense. And frankly, for those people who do this, and I've been doing this for a long time, having 10 years or 12 years of consistent response and compromise, as everybody has been discussing, negotiations between neighborhoods and the city to come out with a result that everyone is unhappy with, but everyone can live with in many cases, to a fiat inscribed system, which is what's happening right now, where there's an imposition being proposed. And I'm really happy to see some of our elected officials come out, and I know that there are others ready to speak who are representing other electeds who are ready to speak today, coming out against this proposal. And frankly, it reminds me very clearly of something that came out 15 years ago called Uniform Bulk. It was a 2,000-page document that went down in flames. And that's what this needs to be done. City planning needs to withdraw this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And our next speaker represents a community in the East Village of Manhattan that certainly, as Councilmember Rosie Mendez spoke to, has had a great deal of experience in terms of balancing these issues of development, preservation, affordable housing, which this plan would largely undo. Sara Romanoski from the East Village Community Coalition. Come on up, Sara.
I want to thank Councilmember Mendez for summarizing our process and experience with rezoning so well. It was many years, and particularly 3 intensive years that the EVCC was involved with many neighborhood groups, civic groups, political groups, tenants groups, housing groups, to get a zoning together that both preserved the character of the neighborhood and allowed for upzoning in appropriate edge areas. So the appropriate trade-off the city is looking for in these sorts of negotiations. And at this point, we're looking at lifting that work. and bringing about additional development. Now, we've seen this additional development in some buildings in the neighborhood, legal or not, with penthouses that have been put on top of these buildings. And this is not only disrupts the character of the neighborhood, but disrupts existing tenants. And it has been used as a harassment tactic, and also a way for economizing more market rate development in the neighborhood. We are a neighborhood that as well is losing affordability. We have a large set of affordable housing that exists, and we need all the protection and energy going behind preserving existing units and keeping in mind that any sort of development will be in the vein of protecting what we already have, so we don't start going toward a negative. And I want to thank everybody who's here, and while I focus only on my neighborhood, it is disturbing to see the residents throughout the neighborhood. I'm proud of all the work that's been done, but very concerned about the effect of this, not only where we are, but throughout the city.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And we have support here today, not just from members of the City Council, but members of the State Senate. I'd like to ask a representative of State Senator Tony Avella to come up. Because of the rain, who's been A, very patient, and B, because of the rain, her name totally ran on my cards. I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
So my name is Dawa Jung, and I'm from Senator Tony Avella's office. His district covers northeastern Queens. Due to the ongoing session, he couldn't be here today, but he wanted to make sure that his statement is read at this important rally. As the former chair of zoning and franchises, I worked hard along with my colleagues, community boards, and civic groups throughout the city to rezone as well as create new zoning laws to preserve the residential character of our many unique neighborhoods. The changes proposed by the Department of City Planning now pose a serious threat to those efforts which took years and in some cases decades to achieve. It is outrageous that the city now wants to undo all of those efforts and destroy the quality of life in these communities. It is no secret that there is an ever-increasing need for senior and affordable housing in New York City. But weakening the zoning protection citywide is not the solution to this problem. Let me be perfectly clear. These changes are an act of war against residential neighborhoods and will not be tolerated.
We have one more speaker, a former member of the City Planning Commission, Beverly Moss Spat. Yes.
I hope you all come to the hearings so that they see that we're all for it. I have very little to say, but I am heartbroken as a former member of the City Planning Commission. They should do such as this. What they're doing is ripping away zoning, contextual zoning. They're using rezoning and affordable housing and senior housing as an excuse to build high-rise luxury housing with very few affordable units. I just want to give you an example that I'm closing. In Brooklyn, Queens border, they gave extra units for what they called affordable units, the Domino Sugar Factory. So what happened? The luxury housing was on the river, and the few affordable housing was on the street. Anyway, I hope you all come into the hearing and that they see we're all against it. Thank you very much.
Yes, so as Beverly points out, today is the beginning of the official process, and that's why we're all here today. At 4 o'clock in just a few minutes, over at the Department of City Planning is going to be the environmental scoping hearing. Many of us are headed over there. It's very important that we start the process of letting City Planning know about all of these very, very serious concerns we have about this plan. This is a city of neighborhoods, and this plan would undo so many years of hard work by so many communities that have labored to protect the special character which defines them. So we're here today to say to the mayor, you have some serious rethinking that you need to do of this plan. And we absolutely, we're going to go to every community board hearing. We're going to go to the City Planning Commission hearings, the City Council hearings, and we are going to fight to make sure that what we hold dear about our communities and about our city are preserved and upheld. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Let's head over there.